Media recognition from Bloomberg, Reuters, recycling trade publications. Patented process for 100% recovery of critical metals, including cobalt, lithium, nickel, manganese, aluminum. American Manganese is focused on recycling lithium-ion batteries for electric vehicles. American Manganese trades on the TSX Venture, AMY, the US, AMYZF, and Frankfurt 2AM. For more information, visit AmericanManganeseInc.com or phone me, Larry Ray, at 778-574-4444.
Welcome to the Goddard Report. Comments made on the Goddard Report and TalkDigitalNetwork.com are an expression of opinion only. Here is Jim Goddard.
My guest is Jordan Bateman, Vice President of Communications and Marketing for the Independent Contractors and Business Association in BC. His website, icba.ca. Welcome back to the show, Jordan.
Thanks for having me, Jim.
Jordan, it's our first conversation since the federal election. The same result as we had 2 years ago. What does this mean for small business and the contracting out business?
Well, it's hard to say what it means for small business. Not a lot of attention was paid to small businesses during this election campaign, despite just, best intentions perhaps by some parties to talk about affordability. That never seemed to gain much traction. Certainly never the plight of the entrepreneur, the folks, trying to power the economy through small business. That seemed completely ignored. Can't even remember a question on the debate stage about it. And that's really unfortunate because a lot of small businesses are, still reeling from COVID shutdowns, different rules that have been put in place at different times, dealing with a number of new taxes, fees, levies, programs that they're being forced to pay for. We just, as a country, need to have a better conversation about, the importance of entrepreneurism, the importance of these small businesses, and how we can encourage them. So I guess the situation is the same as far as the government is concerned. But, I just keep coming back. Like, at some point, all these bills come due, and Canada's borrowed a lot of money. We're in $1 trillion debt now. At some point, those come due, and oftentimes it's the business folks who carry the load for that.
Yes, you said you were disappointed that little attention was paid to small business during the election. Now, you did mention that there was the BC Liberal Party leadership debate yesterday. What did you see there, and is there any hope for small business there?
Yeah, well, obviously they're running to be leader of the opposition at this point, but then from there, hoping to become premier in 2024. Look, there was an actual question about small business posed at that debate, and I, for one, almost fell off my chair because it'd been so long since I heard that brought up. The first thing that we have to do as a society of province is admit we have a problem, that small businesses aren't being supported like maybe they should be. One of the candidates for the Liberal leadership race is Val Litwin, former head of the BC Chamber of Commerce, so he's very familiar with the plight of small businesses across British Columbia. So he was able to give some good answers about, wanting to make sure that there were programs and incentives and whatever you can do to encourage investment and job creation. That's what we should be doing. Hard to argue with that. So, yeah, at least they're asking the question. That's more than we get from most governments and, unfortunately, most debates. Unfortunately, they're still years away from having a chance at forming government. But, hopefully, if we can get it into the zeitgeist, into the conversation out there, hopefully other, governments, the NDP government in Victoria, the Trudeau government in Ottawa, will take note that, something needs to happen for these small businesses.
We've heard some of the parties during the federal election say they wanted to punish foreign home buyers, a 25% tax, or outright ban foreigners from buying homes. But on the other hand, we want to encourage foreign investment. You're banning foreign investors from actually living in Canada if they want to own a home. The Liberal government is in favor of mass immigration to Canada, yet at the same time you would ban or penalize those immigrants from buying a home. How does that make sense?
Well, it doesn't. And, it's the flaw in their argument, and frankly one that they have to come to terms with. Canada is too small an economy to to isolate itself from the world. We rely too much on commodities, on natural resource trade, and then on bringing things in from other parts of the world that we don't make here ourselves. We can't just put our heads underground and hope that everything will be hunky-dory with the Canadian economy if we disconnect from the world. So we need to make sure that we're building those paths back and forth as much as possible. The problem is, it's almost a ideological thing where, if you want people to come here, you can't, just reflexively accuse them of doing something wrong when they buy a home here. And that's really the big problem with this theory is we should be encouraging more foreign investment into Canada, into businesses, into high-tech industries, energy, all those different aspects. But if you're going to do that, you have to invite people to live here. Put in a simpler term that maybe more people understand. Take a hockey team, for example. If you don't let players from Russia, Sweden, America buy property here, or you tax them to death when they do, guess what happens? You drive away those players to other more lucrative markets later on, and you lose your competitive advantage. So we just can't always assume. British Columbians, we are a little bit egotistical. We assume, we live in the most beautiful place on earth, and everyone wants to live here, and they'll pay anything they can to get here and live here. That is not necessarily the case. There are ramifications for the decisions that are made on the tax front.
Oh, well, a lot of the players, they love living in Vancouver until they get their first tax bill. Then they can't wait to be traded to L.A.
Well, exactly. Florida is a great example. The Tampa Bay Lightning have managed to keep together that team at a, slightly reduced cost from other places because they don't have any income tax. So every dollar they earn on their contract goes much further than it would if they lived in Quebec or Ontario or British Columbia. So that is a built-in competitive advantage for Tampa, and they use it to their advantage. So, we have to have these hard conversations, right? And if it means putting it into industries that people understand, like hockey, okay, great. But I would hope that our political leaders are sophisticated enough to figure out the unintended consequences of some of their policies in a macroeconomic context.
Jordan, you give them too much credit.
I can hope, Jim. I can hope. It's hard. It's hard because federally we're in obviously a time of extreme division in Canada where the voter support for the major parties gets smaller and smaller, where you can have someone form or become prime minister with just 31% of the vote. And because of that, it becomes more and more, politics has become more and more about, very careful micro-targeting. This small sliver of the electorate, getting them a tax credit in order to try to, get their support in the next election. And, might only be applied to half a percentage point of Canadians or 1% of Canadians. But hey, if it's the right 1% in the right, 10 ridings, that'll put you over the top. That has a very damaging effect overall because, it just keeps slicing and dicing the electorate, slicing and dicing the tax system, making it harder and harder for businesses to figure out all the different rules and costs. Politicians need to be smarter about this. And certainly that's the responsibility of the nonpartisan public officials that we have in government working. They got to jump up and down, scream from the rooftops about unintended consequences of political actions.
Now, something Britain did, I don't know if they still do it, but they brought in a law that said small businesses, startups, didn't have to pay any taxes for the first 5 years or unless they became extremely profitable. In other words, even if you were profitable in those first 5 years, you're probably just recouping your startup costs. So they wanted to make sure you were on a firm footing before the government started taking its share. Would that help here?
For sure. Those are precisely the kind of ideas we should at least be examining. I'd be curious what the research says. Did that spark a bunch of new businesses?
It certainly did.
Your hunch says it should because, it gives people a chance to dig themselves out of the hole that sometimes you get into when you first start out. And look, government's not losing anything. This is the problem, right? People say, oh, well, then government doesn't get revenue. They weren't going to get revenue if that business never starts anyways. So, you're not losing anything. 3, 4, 5 years down the line when it becomes profitable and starts paying into the coffers, government starts gaining from that economic growth. So, that's a great idea. Let's take a look at it and see if it's workable here.
Well, the employees of that company are still paying income tax right from the get-go.
Sure, and the customers are paying sales tax.
Yes.
So there is still economic benefit that comes. You're right, for sure. Small business tax rates are, quite a bit lower than some corporations pay. But every penny counts when you're struggling to keep a business afloat.
Also, something that's scary for Canada is very few small businesses in Canada get to blossom into being a large business, unlike the U.S. Why is that? Is it the brain drain where once you become successful, you're either lured south or they buy you out?
Possibly that. Possibly it's just sheer demographics, right? 10 times more people in the United States, 10 times more customers to buy, 10 times more products. So that's a part of it too. Look, lots of very successful, I can speak to construction, for example, where, I work every day, supporting that industry. Lots of examples of large construction companies that started out with one or two, people on a truck, then slowly hiring another one and then another one and then, getting the right contracts and kind of booming from there. Great example is Solaris Pipeline in, Fort St. John. They have now partnered with a company, Solaris Murphy. They're building most of the Coastal GasLink pipeline across British Columbia. That's a company that started with, a man named Brian Solaris. He can still walk around. He's in his 80s now, I think. He can walk around the yard and tell you every year he bought every truck, every piece of equipment in that yard in Fort St. John. And now they have thousands of employees. And, it all started with him and one truck, and the rest is history. So some of the biggest, every big company starts as a small company. Starts as a very small operation. One person with an idea, one person, what's the Silicon Valley myth of, starting out in the garage with one or two people. It all starts small and can grow quickly from there.
We'll have more with Jordan Bateman right after this.
Don't miss out. Stay informed. Receive the HowStreet.com weekly recap with thought-provoking podcasts, radio, and articles delivered to your inbox. Sign up for the HowStreet.com weekly recap on our homepage at HowStreet.com.
Welcome back. We're speaking with Jordan Bateman. Jordan, everybody's complaining about labor shortages right now. What's the situation for the Independent Contractors and Business Association?
Well, you talk about needing more immigration. Here's why. You're exactly right. There is a labor shortage going on. It's still in construction. We're seeing competitive markets at every level of the construction industry. So from, competing to get entry-level people in, to finding apprentices, to finding journey persons, all the way to site supervisors, foremen, executives. They're, being poached from one another, quite often. There's a real shift going on, and we need to get more and more people into construction because it's a great way to make a living. We talked about small, how every big business started as a small one. In construction, oftentimes it starts with, one tradesperson, and then the business kind of grows from there. So if you're good with your hands and you have any kind of entrepreneurial spirit whatsoever, you can make a very, very lucrative living, in construction and end up, employing a lot of people.
Now, to deal with this labor shortage, what are the solutions?
Well, there's two. First of all, three things. Speaking for construction, first of all, we've got to reverse the stigma that some people have about folks who go into trades. The kind of white-collar, wrinkle your nose at folks who work with their hands. It is so old-fashioned and out of date to think that way. Construction workers are some of the most technologically advanced workers in British Columbia. Construction tech has come a long way. There's a lot of high tech involved now. You need to be very skilled to work in construction long term. You become very skilled when you do that. So that's the first, reversing the stigma around going into the trades. And the stigma that, you need a university degree to be successful in life. Trade school, red seals, those are just as valuable. And in fact, probably, even more so, as far as providing a living long term. The second piece is we need more training options. So this is a big problem in British Columbia is, oftentimes, trade schools, there's only one of them. They're in the Lower Mainland. They expect people to essentially move from all over the province to come there to get their Red Seal. They have not, by and large, kept up with modern trends of moving learning online, decentralizing, working around people's hours. At ICBA, we've launched a painting program, which actually reverses that. We were hearing from our painters that wanted to challenge for their Red Seal test that, they would often have to wait 3 or more years to get into the one trade school in the Lower Mainland that would allow them to prep them for their Red Seal. We now have a 14-week program. It's available. It works around your hours. You can do it evenings, weekends. You can do it from anywhere in British Columbia and Alberta, and you can challenge for your Red Seal test at the end of it. So we need more innovative programs like that. Like, we need to throw open the doors to the trades and make sure that we're not excluding people, especially the ones who are already working in different jobs. And then, the third piece is we just got to get out there and recruit. We got to talk to folks. We got to bring them into the business. Immigration is a big piece of that. Canada can't be afraid to embrace immigrants. We have a flatlining birth rate here in Canada. Immigration is how we're going to grow and how we're going to get around this demographic cliff as far as age that we're going through.
Mm-hmm. And of course, we want people with skills, and I'm sure there's lots of skilled carpenters, drywallers, bricklayers from other countries who would love to call Canada home. Why not select those people when there are shortages?
Yeah, absolutely. Find the people with skills, bring them in. But also, people willing to work. I mean, if they're willing to go to work on a construction site, within 5 to 7 years, they can have their, Red Seal and be those quote-unquote skilled workers. So, we're willing to work with them to move them up the ladder and get them trained. And, right now, virtually every construction company we talk to talks about, we're hiring. Do you know anyone? Do you have anyone? You can go to icba.ca/jobs today, send us, upload a resume, and we can have you on a work site by Monday. I mean, that's how quick, we're hiring. People are getting hired in this industry.
I know you'd like to see more women in the trades. Is there an effort by the industry to make sure they're treated properly once they're on a job site?
Yeah, absolutely. Lots of discussion on bullying and workplace wellness, making sure that mental health is taken care of as well. We've heard many of our companies, their best workers are women. It's really a changing, evolving view of the industry. Still more work to be done, absolutely. But let's not. Construction is going to be in a lot of trouble if you immediately eliminate more than half of the population from working for you simply because they're women. They are more than capable workers and doing some of the best construction work in British Columbia.
Jordan, thank you so much for chatting with us.
Thanks for having me.
My guest has been Jordan Bateman, Vice President of Communications and Marketing for the Independent Contractors and Business Association. His website, icba.ca. If somebody is looking for a construction job, can they go there and find one?
Yeah, icba.ca, icba.ca/jobs if you want to go straight to it. We'll help you out for sure.
If you have any questions for Jordan or any of our other guests, you can send them to info@housestreet.com, and we'll ask that question for you the next time we talk to that guest. Our YouTube channel is Talk Digital Network. Find us on Twitter @TalkDigitalNet. We're also on Facebook. I'm Jim Goddard. Thank you for listening.
Comments made on the Goddard Report and TalkDigitalNetwork.com are an expression of opinion only. The Goddard Report is available online and mobile at TalkDigitalNetwork.com. The Goddard Report is a production of House Street Media Incorporated.